Hi there. I'm Captain Connor Scharf, one of 2 judge advocates assigned to 1st Brigade. If you're watching this video, you've been appointed as an investigating officer of either a preliminary inquiry or an administrative investigation. Your job as an IO is to be the fact finder and to gather evidence. This video is meant to provide you with an overview of your duties and responsibilities as an IO. However, it does not replace the requirement for meeting with your assigned legal advisor prior to conducting any investigative activity. Instead, this video will provide you with a broad overview of the process, and you'll meet with a judge advocate who will provide you with specific guidance for the investigation that you've been assigned to. If you've been assigned to a preliminary inquiry, it's important that you understand the difference between a formal 15-6 administrative investigation and a preliminary inquiry. A preliminary inquiry is a procedure used to identify the magnitude of a problem, to identify and interview witnesses, and to summarize and record witnesses' statements. Preliminary inquiries will be conducted in accordance with Chapter 4 of AR 15-6. Ultimately, your job as an IO within a preliminary inquiry is to determine if a formal 15-6 administrative investigation is necessary. As an IO, you must be appointed in writing. These appointment orders are important, and you should take time to review them carefully in order to identify exactly what it is that the appointing authority has tasked you to investigate and what is the required for submission. One important note before we begin. Army regulation requires that you be senior in rank to any person whose conduct or performance of duty may be investigated. This does not mean that you can't speak to anyone senior during the course of your investigation. Instead, it just means that if during your investigation you determine that someone senior to you may have committed misconduct or violated Army regulation, then you should contact your legal advisor. Similarly, if during your investigation you determine that something criminal may have occurred, contact your legal advisor to ensure that the appropriate law enforcement agency is notified of the allegation. Luckily, the Army and your unit have provided you with specific resources to ensure that you can complete your assigned task. Specifically, AR 15-6 is your primary resource for conducting an administrative investigation. Appendix C of AR 15-6 is entitled Investigating Officer's Guide, and it provides a thorough overview of how to conduct your investigation. Please read through this appendix prior to meeting with your legal advisor for your in-brief. After your in-brief, your legal advisor will provide you with the Bastogne Investigation Resource document. This document has additional guides, templates, and other resources embedded within it that will help facilitate your investigation. If your appointment orders identify a specific type of conduct to be investigated, such as a violation of the Army's SHARP, EO, or fraternization policies, to name a few, please take the time to research the applicable section of AR 600-20 to familiarize yourself with the definitions and investigation procedures. The main goal you have as an investigating officer is to identify facts and uncover the who, what, where, when, and why of the specific misconduct, incident, or situation that you've been tasked to investigate. In order for you to identify the facts, you need to understand the legal standard known as preponderance of the evidence. The facts identified in your subsequent findings must be supported by a preponderance of the evidence. This is just a legal term that simply means that they are supported by a greater weight of evidence than supports a contrary conclusion. Basically, the evidence as a whole shows that the fact sought to be proved is more probable than not. You can think of this as reaching a 51% likelihood that the fact is true. However, this is not a quantitative standard, it's a qualitative one. This means that you don't make your determination off the number of witnesses or volume of exhibits, but instead by considering all the evidence and evaluating factors such as the witness's demeanor, ability to recall and relate events, and other indications of their truthfulness. I've covered your responsibility to gather facts and the evidentiary standard that you need to apply in determining what a fact actually is. But you might be wondering, how exactly do you gather this evidence? While you may collect evidence in a variety of ways, gathering sworn statements and conducting interviews is your primary method. During your in-brief with your legal advisor, you'll develop a plan for who you should speak to regarding this investigation. You'll conduct your interviews with specific individuals that can shed light on the situation or the alleged incident. These interviews will have questions and answers recorded on a DA Form 2823, a sworn statement. The investigation resource that you'll receive following your in-brief will have a blank 2823 as well as a template for you to reference. but I'll cover a few important notes here to ensure that you complete these forms correctly. The top section of the 2823 covers the administrative data of the individual providing their statement. Please don't put social security numbers due to the privacy concerns. In the main portion, you'll ask your questions and the interviewee will provide their answers. I recommend not adding numbers to your questions to allow for you to add or subtract questions as the conversation occurs. Finally, the last question that I recommend asking is whether or not there's anyone else that you should speak to regarding this investigation. You'll notice as you continue your investigation that the same names will be referenced and that you've already spoken to those individuals. This is a good indication that your investigation is coming to an end. In order for your sworn statements to be valid, you need to swear the interviewee to their statement. As a commissioned officer assigned as an investigating officer, you have the authority under Article 136(b)(4) of the Uniform Code of Military Justice to swear an individual to their statement. When conducting your investigation and gathering sworn statements, it may be required for you to ensure that the individual is properly advised of their rights to not self-incriminate themselves. This is similar to what you've heard from cop and legal TV shows and movies where the individual has read their Miranda rights. Instead, the Army requires that you're going to read them their individual rights as outlined in DA Form 3881. Similar to the sworn statement, the Bastogne investigation resource that you'll be provided with after your legal in-brief has both a blank form and a template that you can reference to ensure proper completion. However, it's important to understand that not everyone that you interview needs to complete a DA 3881. A rights waiver is only necessary when you are accusing someone of violating an Army regulation or violating the UCMJ. Coordinate with your legal advisor whenever you feel that a DA 3881 will be necessary. After you've collected your evidence, you'll need to draft a findings and recommendations MFR. You will be supplied with a template document for this memorandum following your legal in-brief. I recommend that you use this template, given that it explains each section and is drafted in accordance with AR 2550. Your work as an IO is significant. Ultimately, your findings and recommendations can alter careers, provide victims with needed closure, and assist commanders in maintaining good order and discipline, while simultaneously ensuring the health and welfare of each of the soldiers and their families within their respective commands. A finding is a clear and concise statement of a fact that can be readily understood from the evidence found written within the investigation. The findings section of your report of proceedings must answer each of the specific questions outlined within the scope of the investigation section of your appointment order. To provide clarity, simply restate each question outlined from the scope of the investigation within the appointment order as a subparagraph in your findings section. Then, provide your answer as a finding while citing to the applicable exhibits and evidence that supports this finding by preponderance of the evidence. This is one of the most crucial aspects of your investigation, so feel free to ask for clarification from your legal advisor if you're not understanding this concept. Your recommendations are a way of describing to the approval authority what you feel needs to be done in order to address the misconduct or specific situation. Recommendations must be clearly written and should be feasible, acceptable, and suitable. Your final submission of your investigation is the report of the proceedings. This report will include a signed DA Form 1574-1, which references your findings and recommendations MFR, all enclosures, and exhibits. The required enclosures will be outlined within your appointment order, but will include an executive summary, chronology of your investigation, list of witnesses interviewed, and an index of the attached exhibits. Exhibits will include every item of evidence collected by the IO. These include individual exhibit for each sworn statement collected on the DA Form 2823. The entirety of this investigation will be compiled into one Adobe portfolio. This singular digital document will have all aspects of the report of proceedings. You should submit your completed investigation to your legal advisor prior to the suspense date. If at any point you determine that you will not be able to complete your investigation by the suspense date indicated on your appointment order, it is your responsibility to submit an extension request. The Bastogne investigation resource has a template for an extension MFR. All that is required is for you to take the template and update it for your unit's office code and information, outline why the extension is needed, and then submit it to your legal advisor to submit it to their approval authority. This concludes your introductory brief. Prior to beginning any investigative activity, please send your signed appointment order to your legal advisor and CC the Brigade Legal email inbox at bastonelegal.mil@army.mil in order to schedule your legal in-brief. We look forward to working with you and helping you to conduct a thorough investigation. Bastone.